We're moving up and we're moving on, right? Yes, because we are in a holy uprising this month. And it is the last Sunday of the month. There was 5 Sundays this month, and I think we needed all 5 of them to holy uprise. And gosh, today, guess what we get to do? We get to, let me make sure I got this going right. We get to boldly live a new story. Do you think you're ready? Oh my gosh, there's a baby. You guys out there in Etherland, we have children in here, which is amazing. So bring your kids if you want to before July 4th, before we're all open. And don't worry if you scream or laugh or play or whatever. We just love having life here, yes? Yes. It's kind of funny because everybody comes at like 10, 9:59, 10:05-ish, just trying to get a seat. But there's, I thought it was just going to be me and John. This is beautiful. So let's talk about this, this idea of the stories that we tell ourselves, and maybe about living a wholly new story. Have any of you ever told yourself a story about something or someone or an experience, and you wanted to kick yourself in the butt afterwards? No? None of you? Okay, so I'm going to say this one time, so cover the kids' ears, and then we won't say it again. This is what Brene Brown calls the shitty first draft, okay? Now I'm going to call it the SFD. The SFD. We all have an SFD, yes? Okay. I don't know. I have tons of them. You want to see some of them? Here's just some of the stories I tell myself daily. We've got the pocket therapy for anxiety. We've got, girl, stop apologizing. We've got getting the love you really want. We've got 100-something love letters that I never did send. That's probably why I need to get the love I want. We've got personal finances for dummies. We've got homecoming, of course, reclaiming and healing your inner child. And we've got Diary of a Wimpy Kid, which I wish I was. I was more of the chainsaw out there when I was a kid than that. And then, I don't know if this one's so much for me, but maybe some of you can relate to this. Heaven and hell. Anybody have a story about heaven and hell ever in your life? Maybe, maybe not. The Last Week. Now, this last week is actually a pretty cool book. The gospel really teaches about Jesus' final days in Jerusalem. But I have an issue where my pocketbook for anxiety helps out, where I can catastrophize if I don't hear from somebody, and then I think they're dead. So then I thought, oh, the last week, that's going to be like that. So those are some of the SFDs that I tell myself, and we'll get to these other ones in a little bit, because there's always plenty more, right? But we have this first draft. And at the end of our service, my message, we're going to have a bold new story to tell. And does anybody hear like the voice of Sam Elliott? Yeah, oh yeah, okay. So we made the right decision, John. I have Sam Elliott telling you a story about a veteran from World War II, and his next yet to be. That's at the end, so you can wait and stay tuned for that. But when we're talking about this initial idea or that gets brought up in our brain about whatever is happening, we can tend to feel anxious, nervous. Maybe we don't want to. Maybe we walk in here and a greeter is talking to someone, And so they don't say hi to us. And we think, oh, well, we must not matter, or they must not be a very nice place. Or this is something I would think, okay? Or about, I don't know, 20 minutes ago when there was nobody here, and now it's pretty well. I thought, oh my goodness. Oh yeah, okay, just tell yourself it's Memorial Day weekend. It's not that they don't like you, Nicole, you know. Florian goes, so are we going to get a real administrator at some point? And I said, well, do you not like me? Have I done something wrong? You know, so I just need to not verbalize my SFDs, okay? That's what I'm learning. Do any of you verbalize yours and then wish you could take them back? Yeah? Okay, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, at least the woman who works with me, so that's good. We're neurologically, neuroscience has shown that we're neurologically, biologically, this is what happens. This is what's going to happen because our mind has to create a map, a story to tell itself so that it can move forward. And it doesn't have to see the whole picture to do this. So I want to give you an example of this. Cindy, would you look at the stained glass window? And would you, Lee, right? Would you look at the roof or the ceiling? Would you look at the ceiling? Just look at the ceiling right here. While you're in your seat, you can. And John, would you look at that post right there? Yeah, just look at the post. Yeah, just look at it. Look at it. Just stare at it. Okay, so go ahead and stare at the ceiling. You can stare at the ceiling. Okay. Do you feel like you guys are looking at the Seal Beach building? Do you feel like you're looking at a part of the building? Yes? John, do you think you're looking at a part of the building? Okay. Do you? Okay. And would you say that if your mind and eyeballs were stuck on that part, that you could assume that there might be other parts to this building, but this is the only one you can see? Yes? Okay, you can stop looking at it. John, you're okay now. Yeah. Back to me. You can sit down if you want. What I'm trying to get at here is that we all have our story about what something is, about the way something happened, about what's going on, about the way the world looks, about the way our lives look, about the way our childhood was. And it might be true, and it might not be true. But it's the story that we're telling ourselves from the perspective that we're looking at, yes? And there's so much more, yeah? There's so much more to be seen. And so there's this Bible quote, I think it was St. Paul who said it, that we are, well, not, he didn't say it. He says Jesus said it. I'm pretty sure Jesus said it because I think he hung out with Buddhists, but he says, be renewed by the transforming of your mind, yeah? And he says that we are all born again into, now I'm paraphrasing here because I was there. We are born again when our mind is refreshed. And so after the SFD, a spiritual practice that we can do to move forward is, number one, journal. And not just journal, people are like, I don't want to journal. But journal 3 more stories that could be possible. Journal 3 more stories that could be possible about that same thing before we go and call a person or say something or react in a way that is not responsive or healthy, or that we might regret later. I do a lot of apologizing and course correcting, but I'm hoping that as time goes on, there's less apologizing and more just course correcting. We also can use the practice of compassion. This is the second aspect of this, is what if we decided that we were going to have the most generous idea, the most generous story about whatever it is that's going on. Maybe our best friend didn't call us on our birthday. And so we were kind of, at first, a little, like that, okay, shows who really cares. And then after that SFD, maybe we think, you know what, they might just be really busy. They might just have something going on. They might have just forgotten, because we've forgotten things. I've forgotten things. And so when we recognize and understand, which is, it's a little hard to do, that there is only one life and that we're all living it, and that there is this great good, this mighty good that we call God or the divine or intelligence or a quantum field or whatever you want to call all of this beautiful mess that we call life. When we realize that there are infinite potential, infinite possibilities, it becomes a little bit easier to at least open our minds to the idea that if everyone was born good, that there is some amount of good still within them. And so why don't we come from a place of having a generous idea, a generous story to tell? Because I know I kick myself in the butt so many times. I have encountered a human. I do like to people watch and then tell stories like, oh, this person must be doing that. Do you guys ever people watch? Do you tell stories about what they must be doing and this and okay, yeah. So I have this thing where I tell a story about a person and then I just assume it, and I have a story that I am a burden. There's this old tape, right? That I'm a burden. So what does that make me do? That makes me do everything myself and never ask for help. And what does that do? Anybody here who knows me could tell me what it does. It makes me sick. I'm like, ah. So I now have created and developed the power, that dinosaur tank in me that's saying, even though it's really scary, I'm going to ask for help. And it's okay if they say no, but I'll ask because, does anybody know Dr. Kathy Hearn? Anybody ever heard of her? For me, she's like a wisdom keeper. She's one of those elders. Sorry, Dr. Kathy, you're always young in my eyes. But she told me one day, she said, Nicole, you got to let other people play too, You got to let other people play. And I thought, well, I'm not trying to not let them play. I just don't want to burden them, because there was a tape that started playing when I was young that I was a burden to people, right? And she's like, you're not a burden. Just let people play. So I invite you to play with me in this thing called life, and I invite you to create a generous idea, a generous story for your life. And so when we're creating a bold new story, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be an easy story, right? It's not going to be a soft, squishy story. Because bold means to be brave, right? I think it's to show the ability to take a risk. Does anybody have a desire for something, for their lives to be transformed in such a way that feels very risky to them right now, and so they're kind of not really living that? Want to raise your hand? No? Yeah? No? Okay, we got a couple. And I'm sure you're out there in the ethers somewhere, wherever you are, 20, 50, 100 years from now. Hi, great-grandchildren. And you're telling a story about yourself too, and I invite you to make it a very generous one, because I believe that we meet ourselves at the level of expectation that we and others hold for us. And so we are going to boldly, with courage, with vigor, take a moment and close our eyes, and we're going to imagine a new story. From the moment we walk outside of this door, if life were to be as generous and loving and compassionate and peaceful as we say it is, as we say we believe it is, as Jesus taught and Muhammad and Buddha, then what would our lives look like? Just visualize that for just a moment and breathe into it. Because when you step outside the threshold of this sanctuary, it's our time. Okay. You got it? If you got it, you can open your eyes. So we'll hold each other to it, okay? And we'll just keep going, just keep going, just keep going, and we will remind each other. I'm having a generous idea about this situation that didn't really feel very comfortable to me. I'm going to have a new story. I'm going to be renewed by the transforming of my mind. I recognize that it is done unto me as I believe, not as I desire and hope, but as I believe. So that's when we don't have to get real in front of everybody, but within ourselves, we have to get real with what it is that we really believe, right? And so I just want to end by sharing with you Sam Elliott, who is sharing with you a World War II veteran's story. And what I think is really beautiful and poignant about this, besides his voice, is that, they had an idea. They had a SFD about the way things were going to go. And it's two brothers and, and it just doesn't turn out that way. And so, John, whenever you're ready, let's share the story.
Here to tell Sergeant Lambert's story is this year's Academy Award nominated actor, Sam Elliott.
We were headed to Omaha Beach, and I was glad. After all the fighting in Africa and Sicily, I just wanted to get this war over with. It was daylight on the 6th. I went up on deck and found my brother Bill there. We talked about our chances and what our parents would think. About 6 a.m., the signal came to go to stations. My brother and I promised whoever survived would take care of the other's family. And we shook hands and went our separate ways. I climbed down the nets and got into the Higgins boat with my unit. On the way in, we could hear the battleships firing and see the big shells landing ahead of us. Guys were getting sick and vomiting from the choppy water and the diesel fumes. As we got in closer, the Germans had a bird's eye view of us coming in. We picked up machine gun fire. The bullets clanged against the metal ramp of the boat like hail. Then the big 88s on the hill opened up. Every time a shell whistled overhead, all you could hear was the sound of a banshee screaming. Boats around us were burning. I saw men on fire. Even their shoes were on fire. Dead and wounded were floating in the water. We had orders not to stop and pick anyone up. I told my men, when the ramp drops, hit the water hard and keep as low as you can to dodge the bullets. We sank up over our heads. That was the last time I saw most of them. 31 men jumped off that boat. Just 7 of them made it to the beach. The only cover was a block of concrete the Germans had failed to clear. That's where I set up a collection point for the casualties. Medics were trained not to dig in. We were there to see the troops and for them to see us. I detailed Corporal Raymond Lepore to hunker down and treat the men while I brought in the injured. Ray and I had been together since '39. I knew I could count on him. It was total confusion. Shells exploding, boats blowing up, people yelling because they couldn't hear anything, machine gun bullets hitting the water all around you, the roar of the boats coming in. It's like you're all alone in a world of 1 million people because you're concentrating on what you have to do. Hadn't gone far when I felt a bullet go through my right arm. I just kept going. I was thinking of only one thing, getting to the men who needed me. There was a soldier laying right on the edge of the water. One arm was almost shot off. Every time a wave would come in, that arm would be pulled back out to sea, and he'd try to reach out for it. The first thing you're supposed to do is keep a wounded man from going into shock. But he was too far gone. Nothing I could do for him. He died in my arms. I was on my way to treat another soldier when a piece of shrapnel the size of my hand tore a hole in my left thigh. I put a tourniquet on it, gave myself a shot of morphine, and went back to work. You did the job you were trained to do. If you didn't, you died. I could feel my right arm going numb from the first bullet. Saw a guy struggling in chest-deep water. Grabbed him with my good arm just as a Higgins boat rolled in and dropped its ramp. The ramp hit me right in the back, crushed 2 vertebrae, and pushed us both to the bottom. That's when I started talking to the one guy I knew could help me. I said, God, I've asked you many times, but just give me another chance. Let me save one more person. And for some reason, that boat raised its ramp and backed out. Somehow I managed to drag us both to safety. I told Corporal Lepore he'd have to take my place. He stood up, and then he just collapsed against my shoulder. His helmet fell off, and I saw the hole right in the center. Everything went black after that. The next thing I knew, I was on a boat going back to England. A Navy doctor looked at my dog tags and he told me, we have another Lambert here. My brother's Bill's stretcher was put right next to mine on the dock at Weymouth. He'd been on the beach with G Company. We went to the hospital in the same ambulance. When I woke up, he was on the cot next to me. He looked over and said, what are you doing here? Same thing you are, I told him. And he said, oh God, now what's Mother gonna think? We both made it out okay. Bill lived to be 92. People who have never been in a war should understand what soldiers give up. The guys we left on Omaha Beach never had a chance to live the lives they've dreamed of. Day hasn't gone by when I haven't prayed for the men we lost and their families. I still wake up at night sometimes thinking about the guys. Every man that walked into those machine guns and that artillery fire on Omaha Beach that day, every man was a hero. What kind of person would I be if I didn't tell their stories? Such an honor, sir, to tell your story. God bless you.
You, we're okay with that. Think what you want of war, but these people, especially then and there, there was a really shitty story going on, with somebody who was not a very nice person. And these people, for whatever reason they had, chose to sacrifice. And so they had that initial story that they, I'll take care of your family, you take care of mine. And then they got to boldly live a new story for the rest of their lives. And I'm just so grateful for that. And it's such a good reminder to me that we really shouldn't take these kind of things for granted. And so I just want to move into prayer now. I want to move into prayer for our community, for this Memorial Day weekend that we are able to really feel into the humanness of it. Take all the politics out of everything and let us be in the humanity. That is where God resides. There is a divine presence and power that is all around, and it penetrates and it infuses life. Life is the outpicturing of this divine beloved, this one intelligence streaming in and through all things. There is good at the beginning and good at the end, and there are the stories we tell us in between. And so I speak my word of spiritual conviction, knowing that the stories are now changed, that the story is of a greater good, the story is of an uplifting, the story is of holy rising to meet that divine potential, to meet that vision for ourselves, for our lives, for the world around us. And so I invite us, each and every one of us now who can hear my voice, to affirm the truth that we are incarnations of good, that this community feels good with people here, that we are protected and safe, and that they who have protected us are somewhere forever and ever expanding, immortal, conscious. And for this, I can be nothing but grateful, nothing but absolutely grateful for the life divine. Yes, thank you, God. Yes, thank you, Spirit. Yes, thank you, divine. More, please, more, please. And so it is, and so it shall always be. Amen. Thank you.
Okay. We've all got our own SVDs that we sometimes verbalize, but there's more to our stories than we realize. We've got to find a way to let people play and be as generous as we can when we visualize. Thank God for these heroes in our lives. We've all got some stories we continue to tell, all about our past that we know so well. Some are not so life-affirming, but sometimes we hold on anyway. But changing that narrative is what we're about today. It's time to live a new story. Be brave and be bold. Let the best of you finally unfold. And let the spirit within you lift you to a higher place. It's been long enough, shake it up, strut your stuff. No more playing it safe. We need a new paradigm, a shift in consciousness. Get beyond the caterpillar and the chrysalis, and take that new freedom, spread her wings and fly. If you really want to rise up, you gotta reach for the sky. It's time to live a new story. Be brave and be bold, and let the best of you finally unfold. And let the spirit within you lift you place. It's been long enough, shake it up, stretch yourself, no more playing it safe. Let go, let God, there's a new day dawning just beyond your feet. It's time to live a new story. Be brave and be bold. Let the best of you finally unfold. And let the spirit within you lift you to a higher place. It's been long enough, time to stretch your stuff. Been long enough, time to shake it up, stretch your stuff. No more playing it safe, yeah. Live your new story today.
Awesome, awesome. Beautiful.